FSD is all the rage. It is happening. It is happening. Yes, of course. But what if it isn't? Oh my gosh, there's so many obstacles, so many things that could go wrong. So I'm going to raise all those questions as if they are my own, even though they are not. And of course, joining me to have this crazy discussion is Robert Scoble, the Scobleizer himself, the man who still has a 425 exchange, even though he doesn't live in Linwood. Okay, Bellevue, Kirkland, you get the idea. It's still a lot of fun. The wizard of all things AI is here himself. Yes, he was there when Siri was born, because of course he was. It was his own kitchen. So we will have some great conversations. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Robert, so good to have you back. I am so jealous. I went to CES last year. AI was the name of the game, but it was not quite time. And so what I got stuck with was interviewing Goodyear, who's like, AI tires?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Why not?
Tires are important.
They are important. They're not important. Your tires don't matter. Your car will stop eventually.
Yeah.
So you could just have
do you hydroplane through the water? I mean, oh man, I have Michelins on my car and I love them. They're great tires.
Yeah. I've
and they
talked
didn't
with
pay
Michelin.
me to say that either.
Yeah, I've been at a number of events with Michelin, and unfortunately, they're the kind of events where I go, okay, I'm here to interview you, and they go, oh, no, we're not here for that. That would go through corporate, but no, of course, Michelin makes great tires. There's,
they're the best that I've tried. I have 130,000 miles on my Tesla, and I've gone through a few tires, and they are sticky, and they go through water, and they go through snow, and they are just great, and they are really fun to drive on. So
fantastic. Okay, so FSD, it's not going to work, man. FSD can't do that, whatever it is. The current cars can't do it. So let's start with the biggest one that I hear a lot from people who confidently speak without any kind of knowledge that would qualify them to have this opinion. Hardware 3 is dead. It will never run unsupervised FSD.
Oh, really? It drove me all the way to Las Vegas and back.
Right, but that was supervised. We're talking unsupervised. I know,
but I wasn't really watching I did a whole Twitter space the whole way down, or X Audio space. I wasn't really watching the car driving. I mean, so it's already a little weird. But there's a new version that I don't even have yet, and I'm watching people say, "Man, this is like FSD 13, like on a hardware 4 car." I don't, here's the thing. Does it get to unsupervised? Does the hardware 3 car, which has cameras that don't have as much resolution or as much color depth or as much compute in the glove compartment, do they get to the same safety level as a hardware 4 car? Can they drive a car without a human being in it, like a cyber cab will be able to? I don't yet know. And anybody who says they know, either they're ass shook and running the team at Tesla, or they're nobody who should be talking about it because they don't know. And we can make some predictions that it will be good enough to ride, but I don't know to that nth degree. I do know that it's getting better. And I do know that it hasn't tapped out. And I do know the AI industry is making small models that are getting better and better and better over time. And I don't think they've tapped out the computer yet in the hardware 3 cars. So, you just got to be a little patient. We're going to be a little bit behind the hardware 4 cars because now they're building hardware 4 models first and then cutting them down for the hardware 3 cars. And we're just going to have to be a little patient. We're not going to be the first cousin, the first, the cutest girl in the room anymore. And if you need to be, then you need to go buy a hardware 4 car, right?
My objective is to be no worse than the third ugliest person in the room. If you're the second ugliest, the problem is the ugliest will go to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden people are like, "Woo, look at Brian."
I mean, I have a hardware 4 car and I have a hardware 3 car. The hardware 4 car is nicer in a lot of ways, right? The new Tesla is quieter. It's made better. It's just the sound system's better. The lights are better, right? It's a better vehicle now. In 7 years, they've really improved the vehicles. So if you got a new one, you're a happy camper for a while until a hardware 5 car comes out, right, someday. And in fact, a new Model Y is coming out. I have a 2024 Model Y. I'm seeing the pictures just like everybody of the new Model Y that's coming out in China this next few weeks. And it looks sweet, light bar, which makes the AI computer work better. People haven't really started talking about that because the light bar is a smooth lighting source. It's a big lighting source. It's sort of like, I wish I could pull over my lights, but my lights are a big lighting source because it's diffuse and it makes the light very flat and doesn't have any hot spots. My Model 4, my Model Y, they have matrix headlights and they have hot spots. They put a little bar of light on the street ahead of you, right? And it's not as nice as a light bar. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that post on X. I thought, of course, of course. It's fun to think about the things that we can't realize are intentional. And to the people who are saying, they'll look at like any little thing. Oh no, the Model Y's rear C pillar has seams in it where it didn't used to have seams. What is this? Why would they do that? Is this a prototype issue? No, it's just vastly cheaper to manufacture. And that's what people really want. More than no seam is a car they can afford.
Yeah.
Uh,
And a car they can repair and a car, right? There's
oh,
a
yeah.
lot of factors that go into making cars now. You have to look at a whole bunch of things. But by the way, Tesla does not make cars. Everybody else makes cars. Tesla makes robots. And you got to start looking at Tesla as a robot company. The cars are robots. They drive around by themselves. Now, because it's a robot company, there's a lot of geopolitics going on. I was at Zeekr announcement at CES last week, and they're making the number one autonomous vehicle made in China, right? Other than Tesla, they're Tesla's competition, and they got some things cooking. They got a battery that charges real fast and a higher voltage infrastructure in their cars. So they're slapping down some competition for Elon.
And
Keeping Elon honest,
there's a lot of great companies in China. I'm hoping to get to the Shanghai Auto Show. I'm still trying to get anyone there to write back to me because they don't handle PR in the same way that Western companies do. And it's, I just want to get a bunch of stuff set up before I get there so I can maximize my time. Another complaint I've heard, the current cars don't have bumper cams. Therefore, they cannot, even the hardware 4, they cannot. They'll never be unsupervised, must have bumper cam. Thoughts?
I don't agree with that at all. There is a blind spot in front of the bumper where if a child crawled into the blind spot and the car took off, there might be a potential problem. But that won't be a problem on the road when it's moving because the child would have to move into that blind spot while the car is operating. It also wouldn't matter if the sentry mode was on because the child would have to crawl through the sentry mode field to get in front of that bumper. It only matters in a few things. It does give the AI computer more data to play with. Yeah, that can lead to a little bit better view through fog, maybe because it's a lower camera and an upper camera, right? So now it has 2 views through fog. That might matter in a fog situation. An older car might go, "Hey, we're not going to drive." I mean, my car drove through fog and on the way to Seattle a couple weeks ago, and it did a pretty good for most of the time, but it got really thick at one point and turned off, right? So you have to think about, okay, by the way, the truckers didn't even try to go through what I tried to go through, right? They pulled over to the side of the road and were waiting for the fog and the snow to clear because they knew it was really bad driving. They didn't want to flip their truck over and have a mess and have a boss yelling at them. Me, I took a lot of risks there at that ride. I drove from Seattle to San Jose one night, and it was pretty hairy, with a hardware 3 car. So, but it did pretty good. I'm pretty impressed. But there will be situations where a hardware 3 car or an older car without that new bumper camera might not be able to work, and it might have to pull over and say, "Sorry, we're not going to operate." The fleet has told us that this situation is not operable, and you might need to even switch into a car that does have a front bumper. In a robo taxi world, that's very possible, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I was That brings me beautifully into this. Well, it can't see when the sun is directly in its eyes. I don't know if you've had that disengagement. I have, just
Yeah,
on one
not
very rare
recently.
ins well, I was driving down to San Jose to see the Cybercab, and when I came over the pass in, Southern Oregon at the first thing in the morning, yeah, it disengaged 2, 3 times because the sun was directly in its eyes.
Yeah,
If no one was in the vehicle, I wouldn't know. It would pull over and say, "Yeah, I'm gonna wait for the sun to get a little bit higher in the sky." But even if I'm in the car, it's not that unreasonable for it to say, "Look, we're gonna have to this just isn't safe. I don't care if it's you driving or me driving, it's not safe." And
yeah.
for me to, of course, I can mitigate, I can put my hand up a little bit. So I think that even on the current hardware, all it would do is create a small delay in extreme and uncommon situations that are both predictable and, for that matter, it could try and route around it. Let's try and not drive due south when the sun is due south, or that just shows
Or
how far north I
go
am. But
take a nap for half an hour, or go to a restaurant and have dinner instead of dinner in an hour when it's dark. Take dinner right now, right? It could warn you. It could say, "Hey, we know the sun is gonna hit that specific angle that flares the cameras," right? It it's about to get a lot smarter over the next 18 months about contextual situations, like sun is down in the right at the rim of the earth, aiming straight into the cameras where this problem could happen, right?
right. And I think my solution that I propose for the next generation for hardware 5 is an LCD screen that goes in front of the camera that can
Mm.
darken out and just darken the sun. Just darken the
I saw an LCD display at CES where a Japanese company is making it. The LCD in the glass changes the focal length of the glass, so it makes your eyes. It would make corrective lenses like my glasses in software in the glass, right? So
universal.
there's all sorts of tricks like that that could be played in front of cameras. I think we also have to figure out how to clean them properly, right? Because if you're going through mud and stuff like that, like a
Hmm.
Cybertruck kind of thing, you want to make sure your sensors are always clean. I had a little bit of problem with that when going through the snow because there was a lot of salt on the road, a lot of dirt, right? And it got the sensors, particularly in the back, pretty dirty, which doesn't matter that much, but it sort of helps to have that camera clean, right?
Okay, so that leads to the next one perfectly. They can't see in the rain.
Oh,
Uh, the
no,
current
that's not true.
hardware, it's not true, and it keeps
Yeah,
getting better, and it's doing it with the software. Is
yeah.
AI capable to look in between the raindrops in ways that you and
Yes.
I are not?
I drove for hours in driving rain, not just light rain, but driving rain without my windshield wipers on to see what would happen if the windshield wipers weren't on. And it was perfect the whole time with a hardware 3 car, right? Not a hardware 4 high-end camera, hardware 3 car. So it does really amazingly in rain, right? It really is pretty good in rain.
It's gotten so good in rain. Now there are times when the spray coming up off the trucks in front of you is so thick it looks like fog, and
Yeah.
I think that's a different issue than large raindrops. Or so let's talk about snowfall, extreme snow. I was in my car driving this is a real one I read, in a construction zone at night in a thick snow, and the car, it was just like, I don't know what's going on here. I can't see between these snowflakes.
Yeah.
uh is that something that a current existing hardware for
Y
car,
there are
vision
limit
only?
there's limitations to what cameras can do, and the philosophy is if a human can see it, a camera can see it, right? But I know humans who drive in conditions when they really can't see much. In fact, I drove for an hour near the Grand Canyon in a heavy snowstorm. I could barely see a truck's taillights in front of me, and that's all I was doing was following those taillights, right? I couldn't see much of a track in the snow. I couldn't see much beyond the taillights, and I couldn't see the front of the truck. It was so bad, right? And humans take risks like that all the time. Computer is probably not going to do that. It's probably going to go, we're not driving here. You're going to have to wait till the weather clears a little bit, right?
I
Now,
agree.
I just saw some millimeter wave radio antennas at CES, and they're coming down in cost. So there is a technical way to solve this. Put a millimeter wave radio in the front bumper that can see a kilometer ahead and can see through smoke and fog, and heavy rain, heavy, this kind of foggy rain. Um, yeah, okay, we can solve it, but Elon has to put another $300 into the car, plus all the engineering, plus all the wiring, plus, right, to get that thing working. Plus, he has to rebuild some of the AI to support a sensor like that, because that's a different kind of sensor than cameras. So I have a feeling Tesla will just say punt on certain situations for a bit and say, well, we're not going to do that, or solve it another way.
I agree with you. It seems like there are a lot of circumstances where people themselves shouldn't be doing the kind of driving they are, and say, if my car can't do this dangerous thing that only I do, that I wouldn't trust my teenager to do,
Yeah.
then, it's like the people who say, well, I wish to be able to drive 24 hours straight with no more than 5-minute breaks, and I will be standing at the pump for those full 5 minutes. I say, I don't wish to be on the road with you.
Yeah.
I think you should lose your license if that's how you're driving. There's a reason professionals are not
I
allowed to
gotta
do
take a
that.
pee after 2 hours. I don't know about you. I'm
Oh
getting
yeah.
old. And number
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
my eyes start bugging out after, 6 hours, right? I can go, but in the old days when I went to CES, I could drive about halfway before my eyes were just bugging out, and I'd have to switch drivers. Now I
Hmm.
can drive the whole way with FSD, because I'm not
Yeah.
really paying attention to the road, not closely. I'm just watching it, right? I'm not cognitively focusing on it, making
Right.
sure I'm driving properly and staying awake, right?
You're not micromanaging a million decisions a minute,
Yeah,
which is
it's
which
very
is what
relaxed.
fries you. It fries you.
Yes.
Yeah. I've done in my whole life maybe 3 drives of 12 hours ish in a gas powered car. And every time I swore never again. And
Yeah.
in the Tesla, I've done 12-hour drives a number of times. And when I arrive, I'm, ready to go to bed probably, but I'm
Yeah.
not dead. It's wonderful. Let's
Yeah.
talk about another one. It'll never work. Vision only will never work. Hand signals. What's it going to do about hand signals?
That I disagree with, because, hey, what does that mean? You can see what that means, right? Or, right? Come this
Yeah.
way, right? You can see the hand signals. Computer can see the hand signals. In fact, the Vision Pro already sees gestures, right? Of
Mm,
various kinds.
yeah.
You turn on over your hand, it can see that, right? And so can a computer. And by the way, our computers are in our Teslas are good at seeing people on the road. It shows you bicyclists, runners, all sorts of different kinds of people doing wheelchair on the road, right? A dog on the road. It can see the pattern of that person. And as they teach the system more and more about robotics, like they're building a humanoid robot. What do you think that is? That's a pattern of, come on, let's go, right? Gesture.
Yes. Yes. So to the people saying hand gestures aren't going to be solved, there are hand gestures that won't be solved. A good example is, and I see this a lot. You're at a four-way stop, and one of the drivers goes, "What does that mean?" You and I
Yeah.
know what it means. It's your turn, but I don't want
Yeah.
anyway.
I actually asked Sebastian Thrun, who started the Waymo company, about sort of, oh, what happens if 4 autonomous cars comes to the stop at the same exact time? He says we would take off one of them randomly, and
Yeah.
then it watches the other ones, and if nobody moves, it keeps going. If somebody moves, and wants to get in the intersection, they stop, wait for the
Yeah.
other guy. Right? There's ways to do this with software, and go through something without hitting anything. Right? So
Yes, there's little bits of variability. You see it in gameplay all the time,
yeah.
and it's just carried over from gameplay. And yeah, I'm not worried about any of that. And hand signals does strike me as a pretty darn easy one to solve relative to all the others.
The one my old car can't solve is somebody talking to the car, because there's no microphones on the outside of the car. Newer cars have microphone, right, that can listen to a cop talking to the car, or something happening on the outside, listening for a fire truck coming up behind you, or a police car telling you to pull over, please, right? Because it's behind you, wants you to pull over for some reason. Might not even be pulling you over. I've been asked to pull over, so that the cop could get by me, right? He's like, pull over to lane 2, right? I need to get by you, right? I was in lane 1. And so they need to be able to communicate with you with sound, and the newer cars can do that, but my older car can't. So it might have a problem there.
Does your car not have a cabin microphone?
But
Be-
I do have a cabin microphone and a cabin camera, but it
yeah,
doesn't hear the outside world that well, right?
it can hear it as well as you can when you're inside the car.
That's true. Yeah,
And
that's a
could
good
you not
point.
take the external speaker and reuse it as a microphone?
I
Could you
don't
not?
have an external speaker on
Oh,
mine.
I see. I
Yeah,
see. Well,
yeah,
that would mean that it would have to roll the window down to speak to the officer,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
human.
Oh,
Uh,
geez.
I think,
There's ways to
yeah.
solve a lot of these problems. It's better to have the newer hardware, but yeah. The
So,
microphones in the
guys,
newer car are way better than the microphones in my car too, so, right?
yeah, yeah, and it keeps getting better.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time to be a Tesla buyer because the pace of change reminds me of the 90s when you would buy a personal computer and 6 months later you're like, oh, I want the new one.
And we didn't really talk about what's sexy coming, voice grok. Because I went to a booth at CES from Speechmatics, and they have a new NLP system where 4 people can stand around a phone, and it can listen to each of the 4 people talk in the phone in real time and track them and talk back to each of the 4 people individually. And Elon, I posted a video of that, and then Elon immediately commented right underneath. He goes, "Next Grok will do that, or do it better than human," right? And I'm like, oh, he's adding grok to the Tesla. He's adding grok to the phone. And we're getting a new voice in the grok. This is going to be pretty mind blowing for most people, that you're going to be able to talk to a large language model, i.e., grok, and have it understand everybody in the car, and maybe even know who is driving the car, or in charge of the car, right? Who's the master of the car? Because soon that's going to be weird, because we're going to be in cars without steering wheels. Who's the master of the car, right? Well, whoever's talked to the computer first and said, take me in and out. And then, the wife is talking, she's sub to that, right? So the computer can keep track of everybody talking in the car and what their roles are.
I love it. I love it. So you guys in the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Which aspect of FSD did we overlook? That definitely means that hardware 3 or hardware 4 or a vision only approach. So guys, that's it. What did we miss? What did we misunderstand? What aspect of hardware 3, hardware 4, or vision only is definitely going to make it impossible for Tesla to solve this problem? We got to find out. The only way we'll know is if you tell us, because clearly we're no experts on any topics. Robert Scoble, thank you for joining me. He will be back over coming days.
I
Because
just wrote a book on this stuff. I didn't, I'm not.
and he's being a little modest. There's 7 books on various disruptive technologies that you could follow with Robert, and he'll be back. We'll be talking robots next time, and then we'll be talking AI, AR, VR, all that. Stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, when you're, I guess, inside the web.